Hey guys, Alan from CrewFire here, and in this video, I spoke with Rony Hay. Rony is the founder of CloutConsulting.com. They help e-commerce brands grow through Facebook ads, Google ads, and email marketing. Rony shared a ton of great insights that we're happy to share with you today. So I hope you enjoyed the interview. Thank you so much for watching. See you inside. Peace. Rony Hay, Klout Consulting, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. Why don't you start by offering us a quick introduction about yourself and the work that you're doing with Klout?
Sure. So Rony Hay is Klout, as Alan mentioned. I run Klout Consulting, a paid ads agency. And really, we look at ourselves as kind of a e-commerce growth partner because we do ads and email marketing. So really anything on the paid side that is going to increase your overall conversion rate and revenue. And yeah, we mainly work with DTC brands ranging from a variety of niches. We're really good at beauty, supplements, and apparel. The one industry that we haven't been able to crack is consumer electronics. So I will put that out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So primarily you focus your services on ads and email, you said?
Correct.
Cool. And then within the world of ads, I mean, that can mean a lot of things. What type of advertising in particular?
Sure. So we specialize in Facebook, but we also do Google ads as well. And I'm really like the guy who's bringing the awesome team together. So my team has had experience managing, a lot of 8-figure brands and a ton of ad spend per month. I'm not sure what the number is currently at. It was at 500,000 when I last checked per month, but that was like a year ago. So it could be a lot higher than that.
That's $500,000 a month in ad spend that you're managing on behalf of clients.
Yeah.
Right on. And then I want to go into that, but first I want to finish getting the broad picture here. So ads primarily on Facebook and Google, and then you mentioned email as well.
Correct.
And so what does that service entail at a high level?
Sure. So we focus on the Klaviyo platform, which if you're not on it, you should be as an e-commerce brand. And yeah, that really is setting up core flows like post-purchase, cart abandonment, welcome series, kind of your core flows that are going to bring the most revenue. And then sending out, weekly broadcast emails, kind of keeping your brand top of mind to your audience. Because at the end of the day, if we're running ads for you successfully, yeah, we're bringing in new customers. But if we're not engaging with them continuously or cross-selling them, then really you're going to lose that engagement eventually, and that customer's going to forget about you.
Got it. So ads can build your top of funnel, build your exposure to new potential customers. And then is it correct to say that email could potentially retain them or nurture them before they've purchased to maximize the value of the ad spend?
Yeah, 100%. Email overall, I mean, it can do different things. Like, yes, it could nurture, but it can increase average order value. Like the post-purchase flow is a flow that happens right after someone purchases. You can use it for new product launches. You can use it to get customer feedback so that you have more product ideas, marketing angles. Really, it's just a channel to directly communicate with your audience without having to pay for it like you do with ads.
So you mentioned you do Facebook and Google. Can you talk to me at a high level about the differences between advertising on Facebook? And I assume that includes Instagram as well.
Yep.
So talk to me about the difference at a high level between Facebook, Instagram ads versus Google ads.
Sure. So I'm going to speak more to Facebook since that's kind of what we specialize in. And I would say like 80 to 90% of our spend is on that platform. The main differences are with Facebook, you have a bigger pool because it's not intent based, right? So for instance, like a brand that does well is a consumer packaged goods brand. It's a tea brand, and they do well on Google because people are searching for that product a lot. It's a need. Someone's going to run out of tea and go look up online, like, what are the tea options. On Facebook, you kind of think of it as like a mall. People aren't necessarily shopping for you, but they see you on the feed or on the line of shops. And it's up to you and your funnel to kind of get their attention and bring them into the shop and wow them and hopefully convert them. And so the benefits of Facebook in that regard is that you can scale the traffic and revenue a lot more because it's not intent based. Like if only 100,000 people are looking you up on Google, you don't have that same cap on Facebook.
Got it. So on Google, their potential prospects are searching with intent to find your kind of product or solution. But on Facebook and Instagram, it's more passive. People are really there for the network. They're there to connect with friends or whatever. And then you're and then you're inserting some sort of promotion or ad in their
Sure.
experience.
Sure.
Got it. And so with Facebook being 80 to 90% of your focus, let's kind of double click on that a bit. What does it take to run a successful Facebook ad campaign?
I think it starts with structure of the ad account itself. For that, I think, to clarify, we work with established brands. And so why do I mention that? I mention that because they usually have a decent conversion rate because they're profitable, right? And yes, a lot of the times you can still optimize your conversion rate. On average, it's like 2% for an e-com store, but it's going to vary by what type of store you have. If you have a high ticket store that sells on average $2,000 per sale, you probably have a much lower conversion rate, but it doesn't matter. And so if we have that out of the way and your store is converting and profitable already, we can kind of get into the ad account. And so I think you need to have basically two different setups in your ad account. Prospecting, which is you're finding new people that haven't heard of you, bringing them into your top of funnel, or basically brand awareness. And then remarketing, basically people that you bring into your store, for going back to the mall analogy, that end up walking out, like you grab their email or you handed them a flyer so that you can stay top of mind and communicate with them continuously. And the other part is creatives. And so we've had accounts that have been bottlenecked at like 30 or 40K a month, and you can't do anything else in the ad account in terms of segments, which are different audiences to look up, or different remarketing segments. But we test a bunch of different creatives, and a good way to look at creatives differently is just think of creatives as like a viral social media post. If a creative is good, it'll go viral. You'll see a ton of engagement. You'll see a ton of shares. And usually the conversion rate and revenue coming in from that ad will also show and correlate. And so you'll be able to actually scale that a lot better.
Got it. You mentioned, I want to think about who is this for. So you mentioned that you work with established brands and you looked at conversion rate as one of the variables that define like whether you're established. But talk to me a bit more about who, like, what does it mean to be established? Like who, if I'm a e-commerce brand and I'm considering Klout Consulting, how do I know if I'm a good fit? Who exactly are you looking for? So
in terms of, we have, I guess, quantifiable things and then things that are more on the qualification side. So on the quantification stuff, it's like, how long have you been in business? So we usually see 2 to 3 years of being in business. So you have that history. You've been through the ups and downs. We usually work with smaller teams that are close with the founder, and on average, like at least 10K a month in revenue. Because anything smaller than that, I think you're still figuring out your brand messaging, your offer, and essentially your funnel, and which products to promote. And I think the biggest thing that we see from our best clients doing at least 100K a month in revenue is that they are so intimate with their audience and they're extremely intimate with their product. So again, they know exactly who they're serving and who they're talking to and what their needs are, and their business solves that issue. And so we're kind of shifting into the other part that isn't so quantifiable. And then also their belief around money. It's like, are we their first marketing agency? Are they currently investing in marketing? Usually if they don't have those two things, then they're going to have unrealistic expectations. What we kind of tell brands looking to work with us is like, hey, we're looking to have a partnership. And as a like normal relationship, you would want to show up and meet your partner halfway so that you can kind of collaborate and work on your goals together. It's not just a sit back and forget it type of thing.
Okay. Got it. So they've been around for a little while. They have initial traction, at least 10K a month in revenue, sometimes ideally up to 6 figures in monthly revenue. And then you guys have shared values, shared belief system that, leads them to have like a kind of abundance or investment mentality around their spending. Let's start with prospecting. Can you give some examples on a high level of how you might think about designing and creating a prospecting campaign for a new client?
Sure. So, what my team has found to be really successful, interest-based targeting, which a lot of you are probably familiar with. It's essentially looking up different interest groups or cohorts on Facebook. So for instance, if I'm targeting golfers because I'm selling a golf product, I probably would look up Tiger Woods as a very broad niche, and then maybe start researching other professional golfers at a little more niche, and kind of test that wide range of things. And you can go from people to different companies. You can look up complementary organizations, different products. Competitors are also really good. And so this is the interest-based targeting. And this is a great place to start if you haven't done ads already, or if you don't have previous customer data. If you do have previous customer data, you can do a lot of cool things, which a lot of people are probably familiar with as well, which are lookalikes. And this is basically taking a data source and creating a similar audience on Facebook. And you can create 1 to 10% is kind of the scale of this. And the way I like to look at this is, if it's a 1% lookalike, this means that it's 99% similar to your initial data source. If it's a 10% lookalike, which is the max range that you can use on Facebook, then it is 90% similar to your initial data source. And of course, you're probably going to want to start with the 99% because you want someone exactly like your data source. For instance, using previous purchase data is really ideal because if that's the strongest lookalike you can probably create, at least out of the gate, since it's 99% similar to people who have purchased from you before. Another one that we like to use is like high value. So you can create like a minimum average order value in a platform like Klaviyo, and then upload that list. In terms of quantity, you usually want at least 1,000 people in that data source that you're uploading. And Facebook it's pretty simple in how it walks you through this. And and you can create different segments as well. We usually like to start around 1 to 3%. 1% is a good place to start and test. If you find something that's working, like for instance, if 1% add to cart lookalikes is doing really well, then start scaling with a 3%. So you basically increase the max audience size for that segment. And so this is really initially how you can kind of structure prospecting, not like from a structural level, not getting into the ad creatives.
Cool. Got it. So that's structured prospecting. What would be some common mistakes that you see people make when it comes to prospecting?
Yeah. So I think also a common mistake is putting lookalikes and interest-based segments in the same campaign. The campaign actually optimizes at that level. So I think it's a good idea to separate everything. We kind of go extreme with how we separate. Like almost every new testing segment is in a new campaign. I don't think you have to do it like that if you don't want to. You can create just 2 very simple prospecting campaigns. First one being only interest-based segments. So things that you're testing here, and the one being lookalikes, and then test it that way. But yeah, again, for us, we're kind of extreme. We like to segment everything. Another common mistake is kind of not knowing when to kill ad sets. There's a lot of different rules of thumb for this. We kind of like using a 1.5 to 2x. So for instance, if you have $100 AOV and your cost of goods landed is around $40, you can spend, and you're aiming for a 20% margin, which that's pretty healthy for an e-commerce business. Your break-even cost per purchase is $40. And so we kind of would use that as a metric and say, okay, if we spend 60 to 80, that range, on an ad set, we kill it at that point. And we just go on to the next interest or the next lookalike audience that we're going to test. And so this is like a very cost-effective way to kind of have a testing process in place, which most people don't have. They're kind of doing it by feel.
What goes into good, quote unquote, good ad creative for Facebook or Instagram ads?
So yeah, it is hard to generalize because every brand's going to be different. Your audience is going to be different. But what we like to do to standardize this testing process is start off with 3 formats. Image, just a single image, carousel, which is like a slideshow, and then a video. And the video can be like a live action, like an actual video, or it can be a GIF. We've seen GIF work really well. And then we'll kind of split off from there. So if we see for a brand that images do really well, we'll start testing a bunch of different images after that. And in the beginning, we'll start off with the same copy. So you only want to test one variable at the same time. So if you have only one copy variation with 3 different creative formats, you know that the only discerning factor is the creative change. Once you find a winning creative format, let's say like this image with reviews is performing really well, then you can start testing different copy variations. And the testing formula is kind of similar to what I was mentioning before from a cost standpoint. It's spending 1.5 to 2x your break even, then you kill it. And you continue to rotate it like this. And it's combining the process of creative testing with segment testing is when you find a successful campaign variation, and that's when you can scale.
Got it. And how long of a process would you say this like kind of A/B testing optimization process? Like, are you checking every day? Are you letting it ride for a certain amount of time? Like how high touch is this testing process?
I think it depends on the budget. If you have a really modest budget, you're doing like $10 a day per ad set or per campaign. Um, I would say you could probably check it every 3 days, 3 to 4 days, because that's kind of how long it takes the campaign to stabilize anyways. Like when you make a significant change, let's say you throw in new targeting information, new creatives, Facebook enters like the learning phase, which basically needs some time for the algorithm to warm up in terms of delivering it. So you can really check in every 3 to 4 days. They say the learning phase goes from 3 to 7 days. So somewhere in between is kind of a good spot. If you have high spend, so 500, $1,000 minimum per day, it may be worthwhile to check into the ad campaigns once a day, so you can really be efficient with cutting things off, since you're going to be bleeding a lot more if something runs for a day or two at a loss.
Cool. Amongst your clients, I mean, that's a good size range that you mentioned, like 10 on the low end, 500 to $1,000 a day on the high end. Amongst your clients, like what are you seeing on average in terms of ad spend?
On average, I think we are seeing 10K to 30K a month in spend.
Okay. So that works out to what, 300 to
To
10,000
1,000, yeah. That's
to
the
1,000 a
average
month.
client size for us, yeah.
Cool. Can you give us an idea of some success stories that have come out of client work that you've done with Klout over the last
Yeah,
few weeks?
sure. So the most recent one is a boots company, Bonanza Boots. They came to us in January of this year, I think doing around 30K a month. They had a pretty aggressive goal of tripling, and we are really close to that goal as of late. I think we hit 81 or 82K last month, and we're on track to hit that 100K. And this came from the exact process that I'm sharing with you right now, which was testing a bunch of creatives, seeing one go viral, and then scaling it. And we haven't really talked about scaling it, but one of the scaling strategies we use, so I guess more context, there's two different versions of scaling. Vertical, which is increasing spend on a campaign. So if you're spending $50, you increase it. There's a few different methodologies. There's two that I like: doubling when it's under $100. So if it's at $40, you can double it to 80, or horizontal, or sorry, going back to the spend thing. So either doubling it when it's under $100, 40 to 80, or increasing it by 20%. The 20% rule is kind of the more conservative and safer way, because I think just in the marketing community, that's what's been tested the most, and it's proven that it doesn't break as often, but it can still break. It happens all the time where it's going to break and you're going to have to restart the entire process again, or duplicate it and start again. And then the other method of scaling besides vertical is horizontal. So let's say we
Real
have,
quick, sorry, before you go deep on horizontal, what does it mean for a campaign to break? Like if say you increase it.
Sure. So I mean,
breaks,
super
what
simply,
happens?
if it breaks, you start losing money. So let's say your campaign's performing at a $20 cost per purchase. So you're making, again, we used that same example before, at a $40 cost gets landed. So you're making 60 minus $40 profit per sale. All of a sudden that spikes to 60 cost per purchase. So that means that campaign has broken. You probably should pause
Got
it.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. So I interrupted you. You were about to explain horizontal scaling, I believe.
Yeah, horizontal scaling. So this is where you take that ad set and you duplicate it instead. And so, for instance, we kind of like to take, this is a strategy that's been working really well for our clients, is we'll take a winning testing campaign. Let's just use a very simple example, 1% lookalike of previous purchasers. We'll take that, let's say it's winning at $100 a day. We'll take that, we'll use a cost cap strategy for the bidding. And I'll explain that after this, but so we'll take that, put it at $1,000 per day cost cap of that same exact ad set. And so we just duplicated it, increased the budget essentially. And that's horizontal scaling. Like you're taking what's working and then you're either creating a separate, different audience, or you're just increasing the budget on that exact audience.
What was the definition of cost cap?
So yeah, cost cap. So there's 3 different bidding strategies on Facebook: lowest cost, bid cap, and cost cap. Lowest cost is the default. And it's basically telling Facebook, hey, go complete my conversion objective at the lowest cost possible. And so 95% of the time we just use conversion objective, which is basically telling Facebook we want one event, and the event we almost always use is purchase, just drive revenue. And so at lowest cost, it's saying, okay, go drive purchases at the lowest possible rate. Bid cap is you set a bid, say $40. Facebook will never go out of its way to pay more than $40 for that purchase. And so if it reaches that point and it can't get that conversion below that, then the campaign is going to stop spending. And so you can put a budget of 1,000, but it may only spend $500 that day.
Got it.
Cost cap is very similar, except that it averages it out. So it will go over that bid sometimes. Like let's say you put $40 for the goal. Maybe it'll go to 50 or 60 for that one purchase, because next time it's assuming that it can get someone at 20 or 30 to hit that average.
Got it. So cool.
So cost cap's been really effective for us, from taking something that's working and increasing the budget dramatically.
Got it. Now, a lot of what we just talked about applies to the prospecting component, bringing new leads in. We mentioned remarketing earlier, and I'm sure a lot of this cross applies and is relevant for remarketing as well, things like creative, things like scaling. But I'm curious first if you could define the difference between, or I guess we defined the difference between prospecting and remarketing already, but can you talk about like functionally, how does remarketing work as opposed to finding new people? What does remarketing entail?
Sure. So remarketing, you're talking to a different segment of your audience. This is people that have heard or engaged with your brand. And we kind of looked at remarketing in two different channels, on platform or off platform. On platform is people that have, engaged with your Facebook page or Instagram page, clicked your ad, watched 3 seconds of your video. So that's, on platform engagement actions. And then we look at off platform, add to carts, initiate checkouts, website visits. And we kind of test both. Like, again, this is kind of like the creative thing. It's really going to depend on the ad accounts. So we'll test off platform and on platform. And then there's different time ranges. So there's 30 to 180 days on most of them. On platform, you can do higher, 365. And so we have this kind of range, but we usually start with 30-day engagement. So for instance, a 30-day site visitor that's one segment, and we'll start retargeting that. And we start smaller and then kind of build out, mainly because your audience size is determined by how much spend you're putting on the front end or organic traffic you're getting. So if you have a bigger brand, you can probably increase that window. But yeah, so that's kind of what we use. And then in terms of remarketing assets or creatives, it's gonna sound pretty simple, but what we found that works really effective is we'll take like the prospecting creative that's working really well, and we'll change up the messaging, because you really shouldn't talk to someone who's seen and engaged with your brand the same way that you're talking to a stranger. And so for instance, we could just mention like, hey, forgot something in your cart, ready to check out. You can incentivize them with a discount. What works really well is UGC, user generated content, CrewFire. And so you can also remarket them with that. And you can use a platform like CrewFire to get the UGC, or what works really well for us as well is using a UGC request in the post-purchase email flow. So after they purchase, you can incentivize them with a gift card, discount, and you get that UGC video. So now you can use that for remarketing.
Where do you see like the future of ads? Like what are some of the trends that you've seen recently, and what do you think there might be in store for the rest of 2021?
Sure. So a trend that we've seen for a while now, that's I think only been reinforced by the iOS 14 update that everyone's kind of been talking about in the space, is that you're going to have to update your segments that you're using on these platforms. So before, people like to use really segmented campaigns. For instance, like target people that have visited the website 3 days, and then between 4 and 7 days, and then 7 to 30 days. So get really segmented with it, which is super ideal and great from a marketing standpoint, because you can talk to them differently. But with everything happening, and so with iOS, for instance, like now these platforms are using, I forgot the term for it, but anyways, they're using like models. So before, where we actually had the data stored for 28 days or whatever, now we have that for like, I think 7 days is kind of the storage time. And so Facebook and Google are having to use different modeling formulas to kind of predict the conversion information. And so they're saying it's going to be as accurate as before, but we can only hope. Currently for our clients, we've seen no drop in performance, which is great.
Nice.
But yeah, so I think the trend moving forward, which we've had in the past, is consolidate, give more, I guess, leverage or power to these platforms with their algorithms, since now we're becoming more dependent on the algorithm since data is becoming, I guess, more scarce. So that's a big one. Creatives, I think that's the focus on creatives is just going to be more and more important. And that also applies to the email creative as well. I think with the shift in social media where people are becoming more ad fatigued, hence like, this iOS update in the beginning, to like allowing people to opt out anyways. Your creative has to be good. Your messaging has to be in a way that connects with your audience. And again, it shows that you actually understand them at a very core and root level, because the brands that are winning really understand their audience and in turn create really awesome products. And so I think those two things, consolidating your marketing efforts and having good engaging content, whether it be on the ad side or the email side, to build communities is kind of where the trends are going.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for that. Where do you have any resources? If I was setting out to learn more about running Facebook ads, whether that's prospecting, remarketing, or designing creative, do you guys have any resources, or are there any go-to resources that you would recommend?
Sure. So on the Klout site, we've been starting to post recent success stories with clients. I think it's kloutconsulting.com/blog. So that's a good place to start. If you are completely new to ads, we also have a course, the Klout approach, which you can just shoot me an email and I can kind of help you out with that. Rony@kloutconsulting.com. Some really good resources as well. Sugartan.io, they're another agency that we kind of look up to. They have a Facebook group. They have a podcast that I really like. And then Common Thread Collective on YouTube also has really good content.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of my top two. Actually, my buddy Dave Nash also produces really good content. He's exited 2 DCC brands now. And so, yeah, I think he has some good stuff as well.
Cool. Awesome. Where can we go to find out more about Klout Consulting?
Kloutconsulting.com, probably the best place.
And that's with a K.
With a K. Yeah, good clarification. I'm assuming the headline of this will have it somewhere.
Sure. Always good to be clear. Awesome. Well, this is super helpful, Rony. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. We'll do another call here in the next few days about email, and we'll get you back on. But until then, look forward to running this with you. And yeah, thank you again.
Cool, Alan. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Rony. Peace. Rony, thank you so much for sharing your time. If you want to learn more about Rony and Klout Consulting, check out kloutconsulting.com. That's Klout with a K. Thank you so much. Bye.